Hello and welcome to my channel, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you for finding me. It's very, very nice to connect with you. Today, as you can see, I am going to be doing my Understanding the Planets series in astrology. So if you are a new person that's just walked fresh through the door and you're wanting to learn about this, you have come to the right place. So far, I have covered, what have we done? We've done the moon, we've done the sun, I did Mars, understanding Jupiter. I think we had a look at Uranus, we did Venus and Saturn. And now we are going down to the bottom of the sea, down into where the beautiful coral palace is with all of the little fish and the beautiful dolphins and all of that shit. By the way, I fucking love this shit. We're going to talk about Neptune. I'm going to give you my thoughts on Neptune. I'm going to tell you how this works, what it does in astrology. So if you're up for that, then come on in. If you are also new to my channel, you will know that I am a full-time working astrologer and occultist. I do very heavy and very open discussions with people in spiritual consultations, which you can book me for, or you can book me for an astrological chart reading where I will go in there with your details and, of course, with your permission. And I basically tear up your chart and just look at your chart in relation to you, your questions, anything you might have. And I go in and do a reading for you that is recorded, and then I send it to you and you get the reading. So if you'd like to do that, I am having 25% off on my 30-minute astrological chart readings. Please don't think just because it's 30 minutes that it's not intense. Okay, I cover a lot. If you know anything about my channel, we cover a lot very quick. You got to kind of keep up. So I like to get as much as I can in there so we're not fucking around and wasting time, because I just hate wasting time. All right, so if you're new to astrology, then you'll know that Pluto is not, in terms of power levels and things like that and outer limits and things like that, it's kind of like Pluto is more of the opposite of a Neptunian energy. It is the opposite of Neptune. So I will be getting to Pluto eventually. So please just bear with me, but we're not looking at that today. We're looking at going under the sea. All right, so discussing Neptune in your birth chart. First of all, I want to explain to you, if you're in astrology or if you're new to it, you'll understand that there are planets that are all governed by, or they're all signs that are governed by planets, all right? So all of these signs have a planet that govern them. And of course, we all know that Pisces is ruled by Neptune. And Neptune is what we call the higher octave of Venus. So plot twist, in a chart, if someone's Venus is in harmony with their Neptune, this is going to be a deeper lover, someone that can go very high on a very spiritual level. And we know that Neptune is all about dreams, the subconscious, hypnotherapy, illusions, magical thinking, fantasy, and going into higher states of consciousness. So if your Venus is in harmony in your chart with your Neptune, and it's all looking quite good. I'd have to look at the chart because we know it's all very complex. If it's squared, if it's trined, whatever, where it's aspected, this is going to affect you. All right. I have done videos on Pisces, how to spot a Pisces, the dark side, the cold hard truth of Pisces. I've really given it a good go explaining to you what, the Pisces, like, yes, I have. And as you know, I have mentioned, it's very difficult being here in this world and being a Pisces or being someone that has a lot of Neptunian like influences in your chart. Okay, it can be a real problem. And I'm going to explain to you why that is. But we know that Pisces have like a very, very high suicide rate in the world. A lot of them are just really not equipped to live and handle this world. And whenever I think of Pisces, I always give them my love and the biggest get out of jail free card. It wasn't until I about their not so much about their behavior, but just getting inside the psychology of a Piscean person that has like a very strong Pisces sun, very strong Pisces rising or moon, very, very difficult. Okay, so especially these days, I'll be talking about Neptune and where it's been placed in relation to the collective. So if you don't know, we also have things that happen out there in space called transits, where things speed up or move for short periods of time and they enter into different planetary correlations. So if you think that astrology is just like everything's like and it's all just like stuck, it's like, no, they're moving. And we move through the signs as well. We move through the signs in our incarnations. We move through the signs in so many different ways. That's why recently, coming out of a Neptunian influence where we had Neptune in Pisces for, I think it's about 10 years, or is it 14 years? I think it's quite a long time. Neptune is a very slow planet, is that we were in a state of illusion and delusion. And now it's really interesting that we're coming out of that time in the world, and you will notice a lot of people are starting to look at things that they once thought were real, the systems that they once thought were real, the way politicians, the way actors behave, the way the world is constructed, and something that they really thought was real and even dedicated their life to, they're now looking at it going, hang on, this doesn't make sense. So it's like they were in this soft, I get this a lot with people when I'm in readings, I call it soft focus. So they're in a state of like loved up, when you're in love and everything's so sweet and it's like, oh, this person would never betray me. That's all Pisces. That's all Neptune. Okay. And so when people are in that state, they don't really have a mindset that is really looking at this as for what it really is. All right. So thank Christ. My Neptune's actually in Capricorn. So it's like when people are all loved up and they're living in this like, let's go out and like get high and take ayahuasca and take our mushrooms. I'm just like, no, wrong. If you can't access a spiritual world from where you are, you need to work on your discipline. which is my Capricorn sits in Neptune. Okay, so thank Christ I'm able to actually see through the bullshit, and I've been calling this bullshit from the top of the roof with like a speakerphone going, look out, you're in trouble, and people are like, what? Side note. Okay, so I hope that made sense. If you're into astrology, you'll know what I'm talking about. So yes, we have been in this very elusive delusion and illusion thing. And we live in a world now that's all based on illusion and delusion anyway. I mean, when you look out at the world ideologies that were just really quite crazy, we've just come out of Pisces being in its natural state, which is sitting in Neptune. So it would make perfect sense. Now it's time to pay the piper, and that's where people freak out. If you know, you know. All right, so Neptune is also a romantic thing as well. It is a very sensual energy. It has a mysterious nature to it that influences us. It's very compassionate. There is compassion with Neptune, and it is about non-physical things. So it's things that we can't see that we know that are there, like love. I love love. I love love too. I was in love once upon a time when I was a young man. But yet we know we can't see love, but we know that it's there. Okay, so this type of thing is all that empathic, non-physical, non-linear energy. And so when we have that, we also have delusion and we have fantasy. And that's where people that live in their magical world, a lot of Americans do it, and they don't realize that you're actually living in a fantasy bubble. Everything's so magical. And they put on the character. And so a lot of Neptunian energy is characters, like drag queens, people dressing up and playing characters and playing make-believe and creating what I call, we'll go on to this in another video, but when you meet someone that can't get their needs met, now this is getting serious, when you meet someone that can't get their needs met through direct, like, this is me, this is who I am, I'm not pretending, I'm not hiding, and someone can accept them, they can get their needs met directly. When we look at Neptune in a soft focus, this is a person that can't get their needs met directly. So they have to invent or create a fantasy character which can get the needs met indirectly. A lot of indirect energy happens in Neptune. So, for example, a man that can't get I'm just talking very bluntly, and I'm a Sagittarius stellium, so I'm just giving it to you dead straight. A man that can't get a fuck, can't get attention, is invisible in his sexual marketplace value, not very attractive, not very exciting. He can't get love the way that he wants it. He can't get something that's higher than what he is. So he creates and invents a character of a drag queen where he dresses himself up in exaggerated wigs and costumes and has this performance-based archetype that he creates, which is kind of going around getting the need met through like a fantasy. All right. So like I mentioned, thank Christ, my Neptune is in Capricorn. So I'm not interested in characters. And I always say it this way, and I've spoken to psychologists and psychiatrists about this a lot, and I've had very deep chats. You have to be willing to tell the truth about who you are. You have to be willing to be very honest about your own dysfunction and your own laziness and your own unwillingness to see something. Covering something up with some level of fantasy can only go so far, because the problem about Neptune is that it's very difficult to prolong something that isn't real. All right. So the truth of it is, if I meet someone and I'm able to be as authentic as I can be with them, then that if they can see that and they can accept that of me or you, then we've got some potential here. But if they can't accept it, that's totally okay, and I understand. But how far could that ever really go? All right. So that's why people with a lot of Piscean placements, they don't do well in this life. In this life, this is a Saturnian physical reality that requires you to partake in society on a level that forces your hand whether you like it or not. You have to go to work, you have to make money, you have to be plugged into the matrix. This world is violent, it's harsh, there's chemicals, there's poisons, people will trap your mind. There's so many pitfalls and doors that a Neptunian energy or a Pisces person will come up against. Well, someone will just open the door and appear to be lovely and beautiful and love you, and it's just a trap door, and they take one step through the door and fall straight down into the trap. All right. So a lot of this type of stuff all happens in Neptune. Think of the beautiful mermaid. I have a joke with some of my friends where I recently moved to the beach. I live 100 meters from a beautiful beach, right? I live 100 meters from one of the most stunning beaches in the world. And since I moved here, I've just been going for these really long walks and staring into the waves for hours, thinking and, being, being very moody. And, that's kind of my nature. And understanding the sea has this beautiful soft side to it, and in the shallows, and then when we go down into the depths of Neptune, we're looking at the depths of hell. It's dark, it's cold. It was also said that a frozen hell is hell on earth, which is also something that I might share at some point about where we're headed, but not the point. So yeah, there are sea monsters down there. Okay, there's fucking sea monsters. There's things that the mysteries, the unknown, things that we can't just go and check. Some Chad can't check on their phone or some shit. There is another world out in the sea. okay? And the power of nature, the power of the ocean, the waves are very powerful. You know, the way that water smashes against a rock. This is the force of water, and it is all ruled by Daddy Neptune, King Neptune, you know, Poseidon. Okay, that's where it all came from. This planet was named after, you know, all of the planets are usually named after the Greek gods, the Greek pantheon. Okay, so I'm trying to give you my take on it. So when we think of Neptune, don't think of the physical, think of the non-linear. All right, so, and also because Neptune works very slowly, think about how water hitting a rock changes its form over a long period of time as well. All right. So if I could give you an analogy of this, of a Pisces, and talk about Neptune, and I want to give this to you from my opinion, from my experience, is if you ever watch the TV series Buffy the Vampire Slayer, in season 6, when they bring Buffy back to life and Buffy comes back from the dead, from the grave, Buffy is having a hard time wanting to be here because where she was in this other heavenly realm was her version of peace. It was her version of a tranquil space of beauty and harmony and love. And she wasn't here living in this world that is harsh and violent and cold. And so that when she shares that information with Spike, I might find that scene on YouTube here and link it below so you can understand that is a very Piscean thing that she says. You know, she did not want to be necessarily here. All right. And so there's this duality with Neptunian energy, which is it wants to play, it wants to partake, and on the other side, it wants to go back into the depths. There is an isolation around Neptune as well. A lot of Neptunian people and your influence in Neptune, no matter where it's placed, generally will be pulling you into a place of solitude and a place where a lot of, you know, you can't have just anyone around you. All right, think of a fish. A fish can't live in a dirty, polluted water pond, or in a, you know, or a frog. You know, a very hypersensitivity is in Neptune. So if you're a Neptunian person, if you know what I mean, and you've got lots of Neptune in your chart, you know, you're going to pick up everything around you. Like people, when they come and sit beside you at work, if they're really dark and heavy, or they're just very dense, confused, you'll pick up on that. All right. So there is also an aspect of Neptune which is confusing. You know, a lot of people that I meet that have a lot of Neptunian influences, depending on where it is. If it's a Neptunian Libra, oh my God, there'll be a person that will not really, they don't know what they want. They want it, but they don't want it. And they like it, but they don't like it. So it's a very in-between, wishy-washy energy. It's not an energy that can get things done necessarily. A lot of Neptunian energy is someone in a person, when it's incarnated, is someone that some of the time they'll have a really good idea and they'll start that course, and then the next week they will not be able to go into that course that they just started last week because they feel sick or they don't want to. So it's very, it's not stable. And I think that's why a lot of people with Neptunian placements have problems with stability within relationships. They have stability problems within themselves. All right. So it's really tricky. And, you know, that's why I'm trying to handle this as kindly as I can, because I don't want to hurt anyone that I'm talking, you know, as I'm talking, I don't want to upset you, but it's important that we understand where Neptune is in our birth chart so we can understand where it's represented. But Neptune is also the planet that dissolves everything it touches. So think of water again when it's hitting rocks and it's smashing against the, that tidal force, that tidal pull. It's very up and down. People with Neptune placements, much like the moon, are very up and down. They're either really up or they're really down. The moon deals in bipolar and mood disorders, which we get in Cancer, but Neptune deals in hallucinating? It deals in someone's perception of reality being distorted. Okay, and so Neptune, it's important, like all other aspects of the planets, all of them have their strengths and weaknesses. The sun is a beautiful thing, but too much of the sun, it's a dark thing. It doesn't give, it takes. The sun just takes, it sucks the life out of things. Okay, Neptune's darker side is it dissolves things. So if you had a very Capricorn person around a Pisces or a Neptunian placement, it can get a bit tricky. Okay. Okay. That's why in relationships, I always say with people, and I look at synastry relationships, synastry charts are, if you don't know, it's when a person brings two charts to me as an astrologer and I look at them side by side to see where the strengths and weaknesses are going to play out in the relationship. But yeah, you will have a lot of problems with conflicting energies, especially around Neptune, because Neptune can foil things. All right. Remember, it's easy to dissolve into something. So a lot of Neptunian placements, you will meet people that, like I was saying before about the drag queen thing, they will create a character or they'll merge with a character or merge with something that they saw on TV that they like. And then they want to be the person in the movie. Geminis do that as well. And so it's this confusion of where I end and where the relationship starts, or where the relationship starts and where they end. So a lot of the time when I look in terms of a relationship with Neptune and people and where it's in their chart, a lot of the time they will have boundary problems, because if there's no boundary and there's no sense of level of, okay, we're stopping here, that's enough, they just keep going and going and going with something until there's nothing left. And then they feel depleted. They feel that they need lots of time to kind of restore themselves because they've gone in so deep, so quick into a relationship, or they've merged and taken on someone else's energy in the relationship so strongly that they've lost themselves. And that's usually when the relationships end. A lot of Neptunian relationships with humans end just as quickly as they begin. Usually it's not even 9 to 10 months, I've noticed. Very, very unusual that these relationships can last more than a couple of years at best. That's why Pisces have a lot of problems with relationships, but they love being in love and they need that. And it's a beautiful thing to behold. But it is a real, with this Neptune placement, it indicates serious problems which can happen. Also, their relationship with understanding resources. Neptune is, illusion, delusion. So, like money can slip through your fingers very easily. You're trying to grasp onto the concept of money and the concept of budgeting, but you'll often find, particularly if it's like a Sagittarius Neptune, you might have someone that they've got ways to make money, but just as quick as they're making money, the money's going right back out the door again. Okay, so if you know what I mean, it's not easy. But we'd have to look at all the houses. So it's this flow state. It's very up and down. It flows and it moves around, and that's what Pisces does. Neptune does that. It makes things foggy. Things get confused. So it's tricky. It's hard to have a budget. It's hard to have limits and boundaries. I have lots of boundaries, thank goodness, around my Neptune being in Capricorn in the third house. So the third house, is Gemini ruled. So I'm logical. As much as I'm all into the mysticism and the occult, and I do this full time, right? I'm looking at charts all day long. I love this shit. I love it. Is that I know that it's very, the reality of things is the heartbreaking truth of nature is brutal. And it's beautiful, but it's also absolutely brutal. People often just want to see, a little baby chick popping out of its egg. But to a Neptune in Capricorn like myself, we understand that act of life is a miracle. And when that little chick pushes through and breaks through the egg, it has to force and kill itself to break through the damn egg, because it has to stimulate blood flow in its body to keep it alive. So I've got that brutality of thinking, but I also have the appreciation for the beauty. But I'm not caught up in the illusion or the disillusionment of reality. I know that nature is very cruel. So is magic. So is real magic is actually quite brutal. I have talked about that before with people. Magic is life and death stuff. It's nature. It's animals eating each other head first. It's not a unicorn with glitter and magical creatures and shit. There's a lot of, in modern day spirituality, Neptune would totally be the thing to explain that, because it's people getting caught up in an idealistic thinking of something, but completely missing the point of what it actually is or what it actually can produce. All right. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. So Neptune is a very empathetic planet. It is like, people have a lot of caring, a lot of empathy. They have a very strong connection to wanting to soothe pain in other people. They're very charitable. It could be a Neptune person would be someone that gives a lot of money away to charity or works in kitchens and wants to, they just can't stand to see a starving child on TV, this type of thing. What can often happen is with the trap and the pitfalls around this is that they will go for the child that is being, starving in the picture, in the image, over understanding the entrapment of the projection of the child on the TV is actually just, some organization that is using that picture of a child to create a non-for-profit organization. Like, we know they're not taxed, and then they're benefiting from basically creating a business model that evades, certain things in the government and then gets to make money. So you'll often find a lot of fake charity around. And a lot of Neptunian energy always falls for that, and they don't realize that the child actually gets like not even 1 cent out of the dollar that they're putting in. So it's a lot of that. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So Neptune in your birth chart is a beautiful thing, and we need compassion, and we need a sense of, mysticism. Sometimes I think life is perhaps something to not be understood, and I kind of have to scold myself because, I'm trying to understand the purpose of existence, which, by the way, is creation, is the purpose of existence. But what can so often happen, and I've noticed this in modern day living with people, is with the algorithm and with social media, people kind of create a narcissistic bubble that they live in, which detaches them from real connection with others. And I think that there is a lot of illusion around that within people and themselves. All right. So, because we're here to co-create as well. We're not here to just create. This whole idea of people living in a narcissistic bubble where it's all about them is not real either. So co-creation is what humans are also here for as well, which is why it's a numbers game in this world, like the show Survivor. It's why it's such a successful show, because it showcases the macro and the micro. Anyway, boundaries. Yes, boundaries, Neptune. It's all about boundaries. All right, so Neptune is hypersensitive to, like I mentioned, to everything. So toxins, Neptune rules poisons, it rules alcohol, it rules things that are not necessarily good for you. It's also about the sensitivity of your reaction to like cleaning sprays and anything that, harsh chemicals, all of this type of stuff is also Neptune. Neptune is mushrooms, ayahuasca. It is like anything that distorts something. Anything like, think of it like looking through a window, like a clean window that gets dirty. That's Neptune to me. So it's like you have to clean the window to have a clear view through the window. That's why I don't really drink or smoke or, I don't do drugs, because I know that, yes, it will feel good, but I also know drugs on any level also come with a price that has to be paid, which accelerates aging in the body, particularly if it's like synthetic, like tablets or cocaine or LSD. Things like that really accelerate the physical body in terms of its physical, like everything has a price. All right. So a lot of people, they get caught up in like drug addictions. They get to a certain point in their life where they don't do well in the monetary world because they didn't form structure and they prioritized like a non-linear path, which is not good. Okay. So yeah, not good. I think Neptune also rules visuals, in terms of the time where Neptune was discovered back in 1910 is also connected to the camera. And so we know that when we think of the past, unless we had, because when we have a photo, we have a visual aspect of something that we can go back and revisit. When there was no camera, we didn't have anything other than our memory. So when the camera was invented, it was like this amazing thing because now we can go back to a structured memory of something that's telling us the truth of something that was once there. It's like the camera and the photograph is what like solidified or solidified, I don't know if that's a word, but it made it solid. It was something more as a concrete memory of truth. And so Neptune is connected to truths, and also having the camera, it's like now we can go back and revisit something. All right. Also, when we distort stuff, like you'll see a lot with AI or with like a lot of magical imagery, it's one thing to see a person in a photo, but when we see a magical creature in a photo, it's challenging our sense of reality. The Wizard of Oz. Okay, we can understand there's a girl with some red slippers, but when it's like her walking with a man made of tin and a giant lion that's talking, that's fantasy. All right. So a lot of people, and particularly in the magical world, they can get completely caught up in delusion, and their level of like magical altered states can really fuck up their direction or how their viewpoint of their vantage point of how they like see the world. All right. So a lot of people that play video games are also very Neptunian, where it's like you're interacting in a simulation of something that isn't real. Like, a lot of idealism and a lot of very dark idealism that you'll see in woke culture is also fantasy as well, where we can, a lot of, what's it called? The technical term I see a lot, it's cognitive dissonance happens a lot in Neptunian energy. So it's someone that chooses to believe that something is something different other than what it is, and then interacting with it in a way that they think makes it so, but it doesn't. So it's like telling a man that he can be a woman, and then if everyone everyone agrees and goes along with that narrative, now we've changed a narrative in our head, but we still know biologically the truth. This is something I wanted to talk about in an upcoming video I want to do about George Orwell's 1984, about groupthink, where we blur reality to fit into a narrative so we can get connection over understanding something or accepting something that is true. We make it untrue. So yeah, a lot of lies happen with Neptune energy. You know, I've had people come up to me and tell me that I'm a fairy, or that I've been under the sea with them as King Neptune, and, you know, all of this type of stuff. And I think it's really lovely, but I also have to have a sense of reality to this as well. Okay, but I do love, you know, imagination, and I love, like, you know, I'm an artist. I create, I transmute. That's what I do. But I do it in a practical way. So I hope that makes sense. One of the things that can happen with Neptune in your chart is that you can oversimplify things that are very complicated that we have to understand. It's not a practical thinker. It's an emotional thinker. It's a person that will have a lot of distortion of make-believe to get out of uncertain times. You know, sometimes it's giving someone the benefit of the doubt when you know something is very off with them. That's why a lot of red flags, like a lot of relationships that I see with like Neptune in, you know, they've got wherever their Neptune is sitting, whether it's in, you know, Neptune in Pisces, or it's a double whammy, but Neptune in like Cancer or something, it could be falling in love with that soft focus energy. All right. So it's seeing only what you want to see of them and ignoring the rest. All right. So yeah, it's all frequency based. So when you have to look at your chart to understand it, but Neptune deals in boundaries, and it's like swimming in the ocean. You know, it's a beautiful, vast thing. It goes on forever. It's concepts like infinity deal with Neptune. So think of like the ocean. You couldn't drink it all. You couldn't swim across it in, you know, many lifetimes. It's so vast, and Neptune deals with the unconscious, what's below the surface. Like, you know, the siren concept, where it's like a beautiful siren that's like calling men into the water, but underneath it there could be a sea monster that wants to eat them. All right. So a lot of hologram thinking. There is a book that I got from a teacher when I was young. She gifted it to me when I was in year 7. And she was an amazing woman. I think she was a Sagittarius, but she gave me a book called The Holographic Universe, which was looking at everything in the terms of the matrix. Is that, yes, technically things are not solid. You know, our perception of it makes it solid. And I did mention that our perception of reality does shape reality. I also have talked about before that the gun experiment, where if someone shoots a gun and it's like diarized, and it's even recorded that someone shooting a handgun, the outcome of the bullet's trajectory and the force of the handgun being shot will actually be different when it's observed by a human, when it's observed by someone. So we do know that there is an influence that's happening between us in our mind and our collective thinking. And we all need imagination, right? You know, we all have to have imagination. So yeah, it's interesting because there is an interplay that does actually affect this reality through our perception of it. Please go back and revisit my video that I did a couple of days ago, Determinism versus Free Will, because you'll see that there is an interplay that's happening between us. So we need this planetary correlation because we need imagination, and we need to go into the depths of things to understand the subconscious, to release pain, to express ourselves. And so where that's sitting in your chart in its position and its degree is where it's going to be playing out in your life. All right. So things like with Neptune and Pisces, it is about faith. It is about love. And it is about religion. You know, a lot of religion constructs like convents and churches, that's all Neptune stuff. It's stuff that we can't see, but we believe that it's there and it governs us. So it's like doorways into other realms. Dream of the Endless from the Sandman. You know, I think he would be a Gemini because of his quick wit and his mind, but his land, his world was very Neptunian. It was all dream state. And, you know, it can talk in different languages, and, it's got so much cool stuff going on in there. It's pretty awesome. So anyway, I think I've pretty much given you a really good breakdown of understanding what all of this means in terms of the sign, and of course where it's playing out in your chart will be really important. Do you have your Neptune in Leo? Do you have your Neptune in Sagittarius? What's the degree? We start from 0, and we go all the way to 30 degrees. So the higher the degree, the higher the influence of that planetary's correlation it's going to be in your life. And it all plays out. That's why it's like astrology to me is like looking at a code. It's looking at your soul contract like a matrix code. So that's what it is. I know people kind of talk about, we hear a lot of like words like, the simulation, like we're in a simulation. That's actually a really interesting thing, and it's got some truth to it, because when you start to look at the types and patterns of living things and energies on the planet and in the collective and in the transcendental collective, you'll start to understand that a lot of this stuff is actually, it's patterned. And if we're a part of the universe and we're expressing ourselves in it, then we are of it. It's said that if God existed, we are God. So astrology is kind of like the blueprint of you. That's why people freak out when they come and see someone like me. Well, I will leave it here. I hope you've enjoyed this chat. It's been pretty awesome. Lots and lots of love to you. If you'd like to book me for a spiritual consultation, I'm really happy to look at your chart and conduct a reading. We can talk about anything you want. Make it interesting. Really broad questions, broad questions get broad answers. The more specific your question, the more we can give it a more tailored answer. All right. So lots and lots of love. Thank you for tuning into my channel and for finding me. And I will leave it here for today. Please leave a comment below and let me know what you think of this video. Please find me on my Instagram. I do accept DMs. It's Goliath_artist. And lots and lots of love. I will be coming back actually later today or tomorrow to do a guided meditation that I've been working on. So stick around for that. Bye, bye, bye.